Hey everybody, welcome back to the Making It in Music podcast. I'm Heather, your host as always. A big shout out to the Dublin School of Music for giving us a bit of support during this time and being our sponsor. Hello Craig, how are you doing? It is now when this podcast is going to be sent out there, it's going to be the 4th of May. So it's going to be the day before we find out what's happening with quarantine. And it's scary. People are, as I said last week, people are getting really annoyed. And we're kind of at this point where, is it a light at the end of the tunnel or is it an incoming train? We really don't know at this point, but we just have to take it one day at a time and use this time to do something that makes you feel inspired. Pick up painting that you never thought you were good at in the junior cert level, that your teacher told you were never good at. Do it again. Sculpting, crafting. I think we have enough runners though. I think that can be said. I think there's enough
Enough 5Ks.
There's enough 5Ks happening. But to a man who has built his career around those who inspire him, I'd like to introduce you all to Shane McAuley. Hello.
That was like the best intro. That was so professional.
Thank you very much. Well, I like giving the props to the people who deserve it. Shane is the editor-in-chief of Sold Out magazine, an independent publication and platform for Irish creatives to support them and to showcase them. Not only do you have your own magazine with Sold Out, which you can see in the back
Yeah,
there, I love that. But you have your own podcast as well, which has over 71 episodes, which is incredible and like really, really good stuff there. So, hello, Shane. How are you?
all good. No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. First question I want to ask you is just this whole one thing that I picked up through listening to your podcast and reading the latest issue. I have a physical copy of the Sold Out the
Oh, thanks for
second
that.
issue,
Yeah.
but I only have the issue.com version of your third
Right,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, great idea. The third issue of Sold Out is on issue.com, issuu.com, and it's a really, really easy way to read, really nicely laid out, and it's a fantastic magazine with some amazing interviews in that. So go check that out. One thing that I've noticed from reading your material, from listening to your interviews, is you're huge behind this do-it-yourself mentality,
Mm.
and the whole thing that the hip-hop scene in Ireland is such a do-it-yourself mentality. Were you hugely inspired by by your audience? Is that what led you to open your own magazine and podcast?
Yeah, it was a mix of everything. Even me, because I'm doing graphic design in college, so even for sort of like just general creatives in Dublin, I just didn't really see like a magazine or anything that sort of reflected that in a way. So it was really even kind of given a platform almost selfishly to like people like me, that kind of way. Um,
Have to help
but
people
yeah,
out.
I think, yeah, literally. So yeah, I think right now with like social media and everything, you don't really have any other choice than kind of doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, you kind of do have to sort of make it like you're not going to be given any opportunity, like that kind of way without earning it first. So um, I just love hearing everybody else's stories and how they get to where they are right now, and that's kind of like what kickstarted then like the podcast side of things as well.
Yeah. You studied graphic design yourself. What made you kind of start looking towards hip hop, like bringing your graphic design in towards hip hop? Because a lot of the people you have on are from the Irish hip hop scene. So
Yeah,
was hip hop something that's always been, and the Irish music scene always been something that's been close to your heart as well as being a graphic designer?
yeah, it was kind of I kind of discovered both of those things around the same time. Um, just like as I was leaving school, um, when I was like deciding what I wanted to do, I was getting really into graphic design, but then also at the same time, I just discovered like Kanye and like a couple of other rappers and just like went down this massive rabbit hole. So they both just kind of happened to coincide at the same time. And then I did issue one that summer, just as like a passion project. And I didn't really like intend for it to go anywhere, but I got it printed and stuff just to see what it like the whole process would be like. And a bunch of my friends were like, oh, like that's actually pretty cool. You should like do it again. So then I like with the second one, like there was barely any writing in that first issue or anything. The next one we took like a little bit more of a step, but then the third one as well is like such an even. I presume you've seen from.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen the progress all the way through. And one thing that I was really annoyed that I didn't get the chance to go and get the physical copy of was just in your last issue, the paper feel, it was just very professionally put together.
Mm,
There was a lot of thought behind this, but in this one especially, I can just just by looking at it even online, you can feel the quality, you can feel the amount of time and effort's been put into the magazine. And especially even on the first page, you were like, this is a celebration, this is a
Yeah,
platform, you know. And it just showed how much passion, how much effort, how much love went into this one magazine, and there's so many people involved in it.
yeah, literally.
Fantastic. Well, before I dive into kind of the podcast and everything, I like to do a little bit of a game on making a music, okay? And it's
Yeah.
called the this or that. So
Okay.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you three artists or bands, you know, or collectives. I've kind of come
Mm,
up with a bit of a collaborative theme. I like to pick a
okay.
theme for each guest, and since
Yeah.
yourself is the man who collaborates and has built this amazing thing called collaborating, I decided to go for a collaborative theme with yourself. So first one I have for you, and no offense to either or, and one of this, they're both Irish, okay? And you
Oh no.
might know both of them. So I want to say this to everybody: don't be hating on Shane for who he picks. This is purely the first thing that comes to your head. It is the gut instinct, and you know what? In 5 minutes, you could change your mind. Most
Right.
of the time, that happens.
Usually
Like,
do. Yeah.
yeah. So I've got the first two for you. Two rap hip hop legend groups, okay? Wu-Tang Clan versus NWA.
Oh, probably Wu-Tang, I would say.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And then I got two because I was thinking of you being a graphic designer and hip hop. I was thinking of someone who brings multiple different aspects into kind of their art, you know. So I was
Mm.
thinking of hip hop artists who kind of bring in different elements, you know. So a Tribe Called Quest versus Fugees.
Ooh, I'd have a Tribe Called Quest, I'd say.
Tribe Called Quest. Nice.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That one was really hard for me.
Yeah.
I do these all myself. I could never do them. Last one I have for you, and this is the Irish one, and this is whatever you pick. It is not a slant
Yeah.
against the other. It's just the one that hits you. So two labels that are very big in hip hop at the moment in Ireland: Softboy Records versus Diffusion Lab.
Ooh. Damn, that is tough. Cause yeah.
They're both
Um,
excellent.
both excellent and like the both like so different as well. Um, I want to say like Soft Boy just because it's kind of the group of lads doing it themselves and everything, but that doesn't really detract away from like I know some of the guys over in the Fusion Lab and like the engineers, the mixers, everyone in there like they're doing amazing things and
Yeah.
like even the mix on Stride and the Jafaris album is like
Yes.
better
Unreal.
than some international releases. Like it's crazy. So that doesn't detract from what they're doing at all.
Exactly.
Obviously, like you said.
Brilliant. I hope you enjoyed that now. You're going to have another one
Yeah,
later. But let's go into your podcast. So you started off this whole journey for you, the whole sold out journey for you started in September 2017. That was like the first issue.
yeah,
And then you waited until October to start your own podcast. October
mm,
2018, then a year
mm,
later. So you said already that it was kind of the inspiration of wanting to find out where these artists kind of how they built themselves up.
yeah,
And you had a few like really amazing artists to start with. You started off with JLOL
mm,
before he even had the FIFA release. You had
yeah,
him on. You had Finch on before any of his
yeah,
stuff kicked off.
yeah.
You had Mango and Mathman on before the Wheel Up EP. You kind of have your finger on the pulse. The first few interviewees you had were people who have really stepped up and taken off in the last few years. Were these people just that you were just listening to, or you
Mm.
were just fans of the music?
Yeah, I think with the podcast in general, even it was like we were kind of talking about with issue two, even there isn't too much writing. There's like one or two like little profile pieces. Um, but this was before I was familiar with sort of writing in any sort of like professional way or like even kind of building that network or building content for a blog or magazine. I didn't understand really at the time. But when we started like working on issue three, I think we were a little bit kind of wishful thinking that it would all happen a little bit sooner, but the podcast was almost more sort of a means to kind of get someone like into the studio and like do an interview. And I think the original idea might have even been like all of those interviews are going to end up in the magazine, but then it kind of shifted and changed a couple of
Its
times.
own thing.
Yeah, into its own thing. Like even in the beginning, I started with a friend that he does his own podcast now. McAuley, if you look up like Monks in the Trunk, he was
Oh
on
yeah,
like
I've
those
heard
first
that. Yeah.
5 episodes or so. Um, so like even like we were just constantly changing the format up, and if it's the sort of thing as well where if anyone Like Brian McGuinness shot the cover for this, and he's hosted a couple of episodes with me as well. Like if anyone kind of shows like interest and like wants to help out, like we always kind of like, again, kind of coming back to your collaborative point, just like bring everyone in and stuff. But have I answered the question? I'm not even sure if I've
You
just.
you have no, I'm just my question now to you is how do you go about picking your interviewees?
Hmm. Um, it was a pretty like natural process at the start. Like I think Y-axis. So like DTMD Magician was like the first person I had. He was like one of the first people because I was really into like sneakers before um like sort of doing this. And there were these like monthly events called like Coffee and Kicks. And I kind of met him through some mutual friends that I met at that. And he was one of the first sort of like influencer bloggy type people that I'd really met. So he seemed like the appropriate sort of first guest to like try things out and everything like that. Um, and then we had like another mutual friend, Akil, which is kind of like the most sort of left field guest we've had on it. If looking back, because he's like an engineer, but he's done like really interesting things. Like he went to Tesla's like big facility over in like San Francisco or
Yes,
something.
I remember that
We're like,
episode. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and then Y-axis basically kind of kicked off then like the hip hop trend
Yeah.
because again that was like a mutual friend. And he was actually doing so well that he put me in contact then with like JLOL and people like that. So it kind of just started as like a network, and then even as you say, yeah, it would usually be like the people that I gravitate towards or listen to, because and that's the kind of the challenge now is pushing yourself outside of those comfort zones because you can't really just interview like not that you can't just interview people you don't like, but um it's just tricky to kind of keep pushing and keep finding more and more and more because
Mm.
at a certain point you're kind of like done 71 episodes, it's like, oh my god, you're nearly
So
like
many.
exhausted at the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the challenge at the moment is like still trying to kind of keep that finger on the pulse almost.
Especially with yourselves being kind of gravitating towards the hip hop scene. You kind of have your people there who you can work with. But then there's also so many like photographers and stuff like that you could pull up, the ones who are like
Yeah.
doing the shows and stuff like that. I think the biggest thing for especially for us as interviewers is to, as you said, to push yourself out of your comfort zone and to interview those that you may not be able to interview as well, like myself for you today. Absolutely not.
Not at all.
Because it's a thing. I've Oren O'Byrne. I had him on a little while ago. He's from Metal for the Masses Overdrive.ie, and was interviewing him, and he's interviewed so many other people, and then interviewing
Mm.
you, and you've interviewed so many people. It's a thing in your head. It's kind of like, ooh, is this a good thing?
Yeah, it can be
Yeah.
tricky sometimes. Yeah.
And when you have people on the show who are discussing something that you might not be completely familiar with, like maybe fashion design or photography, I don't know,
Yeah.
like that's two things that I would have no idea about.
Yeah, no, I get you. The
So yeah,
subset one was like that for me as well
yeah,
because it's like the whole sort of subculture of like graffiti. I don't even know if they would identify what they do as graffiti or not. Yeah, it can be so easy to kind of say the wrong thing, and I think as long as like your intent is
is
sort
there.
of coming from the right place, then they tend to understand.
Yeah. And so you've recently just you posted up number 71 recently, and that was
Yeah,
actually an episode you recorded back in February.
yeah,
Um one I posted on my Instagram asking people for questions for yourself, and I think a lot of people were getting on to me being like, "Oh my god, sold out, woo!" Like all excited. And then one consistent question I had was, "Will there be any like live streams or any kind of podcasts or stuff like that coming from yourselves during this quarantine time if it's not lifted?"
yeah. Yeah, I've done one with Y-axis just as like a little tester. I did that like a week or so ago.
Excellent.
Just to see like because I'd never really used Instagram Live at all. Um, but yeah, definitely like I'm still sort of flooded with like college essays and all at the moment, but that'll be done like at the end of this week. So definitely like would be down for it. It's just like weird because you're so used to kind of making connections at like gigs and stuff and like
Mm.
saying like you might bump into Finch or something that you mentioned earlier and like, oh, do you want to come on? And it's almost weird to kind of reach out now, I don't know, electronically and sort
Yeah.
of I don't know. You have the sense you don't know what everyone else is sort of doing right now,
Yeah.
but I presume everyone's sort of in the same boat. They're all probably looking for a chat, and
That's the thing. Like all the people I've interviewed recently have been like, "Yeah, do you want to talk for longer?" And it's like,
yeah,
"Well,
yeah, yeah,
actually, I need to keep this under a certain amount of minutes." And they're like, "Oh, oh." Okay, because like people just want someone to talk to be honest. So this
Yeah,
is the perfect time for those Zoom interviews.
yeah.
Sure, hit up
And of
Jay-Z, he
course,
might be bored, you know?
I know, right? Like, of course, for ours as well, a lot of them would be like centered around, like, say, gigs happening even and stuff
Mm.
like that. So that's kind of thrown out my like priority list of like maybe who I should get on next. It kind of feels a bit like, oh, I don't know if anyone actually has anything to like promote or talk about. Or,
Hmm.
but there is like, I know like Maliki and stuff is dropping an EP. I think it might be pretty soon. So there definitely is a lot of cool stuff still to be like
Yeah, and
talking
there's
about now.
so many like live streams going up, and like Whelan's, we're doing that Courage series, and the other voices
Yeah.
are throwing up all the things. Like fantastic stuff coming out now, which is brilliant. But bringing back to actually just what you said there about Finch in your most recent um issue, in issue number
Mm,
3, you have this great interview with Finch where he talks about kind of his beginning in Drumdan, everything like that. And one thing that really stuck out to me that he said was that when he went to secondary school, he realized that there was no kind of one person that did one thing, that there was
yeah.
no not just people from like this side of Drumma could like play football. There was people from like the
Yeah.
positive sides of Rathfarnham who were better players than him. And I just wanted to ask you, as someone who's interviewed so many different people from kind of the hip hop industry and outside of that, but specifically the hip hop industry, do you believe that there is one type of person to do hip hop?
Mm, yeah, that's like a really good question. I just want to like clarify as well that Finch interview. I think Dylan Mangan did that one.
Yeah.
Just in case people think like I'm claiming credit for that interview.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, no, like I think we're in an interesting space because obviously, like, historically, hip hop is kind of speaking for, minority groups, specifically sort of in America and everything like that. But I don't know whether it's necessarily like a good or a bad thing that it's kind of opened up. But if you do look at it like positively, um, it sort of is this like really weird like mechanism for sort of expression. Like they're I'm currently like sort of trying to propose a thesis on hip hop album covers. So if anyone out there like knows a lot about it or something, definitely get on to me. But how like as a genre it kind of started in like the early 80s and now is like obviously the most popular genre in the world. But even how like many different subgenres there are, like the way like Lil Peep is like sort of like emo, and
Yeah.
then you have like I'm trying to think like stuff like the Jay-Z and Linkin Park collab, and you just have all these like things that it touches all these different communities, even like obviously fashion and how it's kind of influenced everything else since as well. Um, I think it's in like the best sort of place it's ever been, but and obviously that means kind of now there definitely isn't just one type of person that can do it. And like I don't think it's going to be limited to like just Americans or just people from the UK. I think eventually someone like Kojak or Jafaris or anyone could like break out. But yeah, it's such an interesting genre. I think that's why I always gravitated towards it. Um, it's just
It's gotten huge. It's exploded over the last couple of years.
yeah,
It's everywhere now in Dublin. There's a huge hip hop scene that wasn't there before, and it's fantastic to see.
exactly.
Um, but one thing that I'm noticing now with so many hip hop artists coming out, like there's more and more every single week. I do some session work with Chris Cabs, and all I'm seeing is the amount of new people who are coming into a studio. Do you think that this is something that I believe that the umbrella term of Irish hip hop is now too big. There's way too
Mm,
many people in it. Do you think that we may be going in the direction of like of London, that we're going to have to subcategorize our hip hop scene into like grime, trap, emo rap, battle
yeah,
rap,
yeah,
jazz rap, like
yeah,
do you think we could be leaning towards that, of kind of having to separate our
yeah.
artists?
Probably like definitely in like it's hard to imagine we wouldn't be in maybe like 5 or 10 years because you have like like the stuff that Mango Mathman is doing is so like bass heavy, grimy, and then the stuff that say like Finch is doing is quite sort of boom bappy, introspective.
And you could
Like
argue that Kneecap is kind of the new gangster rap.
yeah, like there's all these like weird things happening. So I definitely feel like you know, in 5 or 10 years, if it keeps on this trajectory, you're definitely going to have to start kind of being like, all
Separating
right,
it.
well, yeah, especially even with like, I was recently having a conversation with Oren, the guy who does the sound engineering for the podcast, about like even trap. Like we were trying to think is like is trap even still like a thing that people are looking to do? Like, a new artist starting out still doing trap? I don't know. Like,
Mm.
it feels like it's been played out, but I don't know like where it's going to end up in a couple of years. We might all just swing back and start listening to like crazy punk bands or something again. I don't know. Like,
That's the thing. That's why I think it's so funny that for such a long time the Irish scene was dominated by singer songwriters. You know, a
yeah,
person with a guitar, and now it just seems that there's two genres that have absolutely exploded, and those two genres are hip hop and like the rock punk scene. So because we
mm,
have like the likes of like Jafaris and oh my god, the list is endless.
yeah,
Finch, like
literally.
there's so
You'd
many
be all
hip hop,
day.
like
Yeah,
you'd be all day going through them. And then it's same with the kind of the rock end. You've got Thumper, you've
for
got
sure,
Vernon Jane, you've all these like
for sure.
huge bands that are coming out now, and it's like
Without even mentioning Fontaines, like,
yeah, oh my god,
you know
yeah,
what I
without
mean?
even
Like, yeah,
mentioning them, like, and it's almost like we've gone completely the opposite direction in either sense. So we've gone like
mm,
totally funky, or we've gone like totally rocky. It's like we wanted to escape that almost and have this new like fresh sound coming out, and it's
yeah,
paid off because those bands are doing incredibly well for themselves. Like all the
yeah,
ones
for
that are
sure.
coming out now. Let's do another little game, shall we?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to give you, right, a few subcategories of hip hop, right?
mm,
And from your extensive knowledge of the Irish hip hop scene, you're going to try give a rapper or an artist to each subgenre. Okay? I only have a
mm.
few, so don't worry. Okay. Conscious rap.
Oh, I'd say Finch for that one. I'd
Yeah, I
say.
would say, but then he was saying in his interview in the most recent one
Yeah,
that
I
came out, he
know.
was like, I wouldn't consider myself. It's like, really? Really?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no, definitely on Bookie's pens.
yeah.
Yeah.
Next one, grime.
Grime, I feel like the closest to that, and I've already sort of mentioned it, would be Mango Mathman. So I'm trying to think of maybe another one. I'm kind of struggling. Hmm. Yeah, I'll have to go with them for that one.
Yeah, okay. Any emo rappers among us, do you think?
Um, I don't think I've listened. I don't think I've heard enough from here. I've heard of a few names, but I don't want to say them for fear that because I haven't listened yet, that
Yeah.
that might not be what they are. Um, I'm trying to think maybe the closest thing that I know. I'll give a shout out to Silent Ghost here, maybe.
Nice.
That'd be close, yeah.
Okay, next one I got for you. Any rap rock coming up?
Ooh. Um, I've I'm actually quite surprised that I haven't noticed that. Yeah. Um, I think someone who is doing some cool instrumental stuff like that would be Maliki, but it's not
Mm.
necessarily rock, I would say. But definitely like along those lines. Um, yeah, I'm almost surprised that, especially because we were just talking about
Yeah,
there is
that
such a big rock scene, and yeah, that's crazy.
well, there's I always say like to people, don't be afraid to expand outside of your scene. One of the best musicals that have come out of Ireland in the last while is called Beat, and it was a
Mm,
rap musical.
mm,
And it's fantastic, and it's about this guy who's has addiction. Three fantastic actors in it: Fintan Larney, Martha Breen, and this guy falls out of my head. But when I was talking to Anna Rose of RT Pulse about that, she was saying that because she works in with mostly hip hop artists, and she said she'd love to see more people, more rappers expanding themselves into different genres besides hip hop. That just
yeah,
because you rap doesn't mean it has to be like with the kind of boom,
yeah,
the
exactly.
normal hip hop we're used to. Okay, last one, and then I'll leave you alone with all the games. I promise. I'm just so
You're fine.
sad.
No, no, this is good.
No friends anymore. I just miss all my games. I already said it, but gangster rap.
Oh, um, I mean, without going too literal, there's like the whole drill scene going on, which is pretty mad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gangster rap. Hmm. Did you have someone written down for this?
Um, I had kneecap originally. TPM was also
Hmm.
kind of going through my mind, and
Hmm.
then if you consider them, I guess it's kind of a piss take gangster rap. You kind of seem versatile
Yeah.
as,
No, I get that. Yeah,
you know. But it's kind of a long stretch when you kind of go to versatile.
yeah. I mean, like they did have Coolio on a track, so
That is
they're
fair.
probably certified.
I was meant to be supporting him this day last week.
Oh, no way.
I'm so annoyed. I was this close. I was just gonna walk up to him and be like, "Hey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Coolio," just to say Coolio to his face
I know, right?
and
That's
actually
hilarious.
be his name. That'd be class.
I've heard he's not supposed to be that nice, though.
That's what I was worried
I've
about.
heard
But I was just
stories.
hoping
Yeah,
if I just bounced up with my like
yeah, yeah.
childlike enthusiasm, that maybe I could just defrost the frozen heart. Or he just ignore me entirely. So maybe it's a good
I
thing.
know.
Yeah.
Because I think it was like on Joe Rogan or something. That he was on Fear Factor or something like
Yeah.
that, Coolio, back in the day. So, and he was saying, I don't know, I think he just smoked too much or something before
Mm,
coming on. But
just
I've heard, yeah, little whispers here and there.
there's I think there's certain people within the hip hop scene who, after a point of kind of, they get to a point of popularity and then they
Yeah,
lose what made them go into hip hop in the first place, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And suddenly
for
they've
sure.
gone past that and it's now no longer gangster rap and it's basically frat boy, basically frat
Yeah,
boy,
yeah,
you know?
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
Yeah, after that. The kind of big question I want to ask you, and this is because it was Poetry Day yesterday. Today, technically, is Friday. When
mm,
we're recording this interview, yesterday was Poetry Day. And one thing that I noticed when I was reading the most recent issue was the mention of poetry, and between a lot of your guests were mentioning
yeah,
different poets and stuff like that, and saying how they go about their lyrics and stuff like that. And like in your podcast as well, there's been plenty of people talking about it. But I'm a teacher myself and I have loads of students, and when I talk to them about lyrics and stuff like that, they are unable to attach the idea of lyrics to poetry, you
right.
know. And of course you probably know that like the earliest kind of mention of rap or rapping was spoken word with drum beats to emphasize beats and like kings and queen times, talking gestures here, you know. Do
Yeah,
you think that there's maybe something that can be done by the hip hop scene to show our younger generation that poetry is still a part of our lives? You know, it's still there.
yeah,
Just because it's now to a beat doesn't mean it's not important. Doesn't mean we just throw it away as something entirely.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. I think like people definitely sort of inherently know and like resonate with lyrics and stuff like that kind of. I don't think that's the issue. Obviously, it's more maybe drawing that connection between the two. Um, I feel like maybe what maybe could be happening there would be maybe something more like um, either like maybe in the schools or even if it was like a government thing, like for something like Poetry Day. If I know like coronavirus, you couldn't right now, but if there was maybe some sort of like hip hop festival happening in the Sugar Club or something to celebrate, or something that they could kind of
Be able to show the
incentivize
link.
people. Yeah, um, because I think like the artists know it, and I think the people that really sort of resonate with lyrics and stuff, like people always use them for like tattoos. Like people know that there is meaning in lyrics, but it's
Mm.
just I think drawing that connection would have to be um I don't know, maybe do you feel maybe it's from the I don't know if there's a poet side almost like they don't want to maybe um
That could be it
associate it
exactly.
with maybe like the worst of sort of you know hip hop or something as well. So it's kind of tricky, like
Yeah, well, then you see some poets with the mad rhyming schemes, and you're like, I'd rather listen to a hip hop artist, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I think there's a natural evolution there that people just tend to ignore. You know, it went from poetry to spoken word into hip hop. And if we want to keep both those things alive, we want to keep hip hop and poetry alive, the poets need to stop turning their nose up at the hip hop artists, and
yeah,
the hip hop artists need to stop thinking the poets are so snobby. I think it's something that definitely needs to be considered by a lot of people, that at the end of the day, when you take away that beat, it's a poem, you know?
mm, mm.
It's a
There's
rhyming scheme.
did you happen to catch that documentary This Land that Bobby Sotelo did?
No.
Um, just like listeners and like you just check it out because there's a really cool one of the people that he interviews in it is this girl called like Felicity Speaks, I think. When people Google her, you might find her stuff. I think she's just put on the syllabus for either the junior or the leaving cert, and she's only like 24 or something like that. But she talks a lot about the sort of spoken word community in Dublin right now, and all. It's like really, really great. This Land, I think it's on YouTube, and it's really,
I'll have
really
to
good.
have a look at that. That'd be class.
It is. You should
Yeah.
get Bobby on this. I know it's maybe not as much music, but you should
Oh,
still.
I like that's what the whole making music podcast is about. It's any aspect of that, it's any
Yeah,
aspect of the music industry. You don't have to be a musician to be part of the music industry. You could be a photographer, you could be a producer, you
yeah,
could be a writer, publisher, anything. There's
yeah.
anything that kind of links you back to it. Well, look, I don't want to be chewing the ear off you all day. So
No worries.
just before we like kind of wrap up with my last little game for you, just
Yeah.
last one. Any plans for the next little while?
I actually like. I'm only kind of like I mentioned. I'm like wrapping up like my sort of college work for the year, and like last summer, that's when we did like the vast majority of like issue three. So I'm
Mm.
not really sure what we're gonna do this time around because that was when we did like all of the shoots and a lot of the interviews and stuff, and then it was just the design stuff that I did after that. So like it looks like it's going to be a lot of like Skype podcasts and I don't know, probably doing some cool stuff on the website and stuff and coming up with some new like I was thinking of starting like this idea. This will force me to do it if I talk
Yes.
about it. Um, basically where we were going to have because we get so many like submissions and stuff that it can be kind of like overwhelming because we only have it's basically me and Kaylin for the most part, and Brian and stuff occasionally. Everyone's obviously flooded with their own work outside of it, but we get so many submissions and so many stuff that we almost can't cover that. Was going to start this series on the Instagram page where we'd post, say, like 4 tracks that released every week, and that were submitted to us, and then let people vote on which one is their favorite. And then at the end of like the year, there would be like this playlist of like 100 songs, say, and it'll be like the 100 or People's Choice or I don't know something like that. Like let
Yeah.
people like sort of vote on a playlist, and have a kind of
52 voted by you.
yeah, something
Weeks
like
in a
that. That's
year.
a better name,
There you
literally.
go.
Yeah, that's it decided.
Copywriting right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd probably stuff like that. I guess we're gonna have to get creative with it. Sad that like there's just no events happening because we were supposed to have this one in the Sugar Club on March 16th that Nilo organised for Inner City Helping Homeless. And like I'm not sure if you saw the
Oh
lineup, but it
yes,
was
it
literally
was
like
amazing.
JLOL, Jafaris, what it was everyone we've pretty much nearly talked about. That's
Lads
been
and Burner
rescheduled to
Records and
March.
everything.
Yeah, that's been rescheduled to March 27th, or sorry, December 27th. So hopefully, that'll go ahead.
Yeah, it'll be a good time as well. The 27th is a pretty good date actually. It's the kind
Yeah,
of time that people are kind of like, okay, I need to get out of the house. I've been with my family too much at this point.
exactly. You got the new
So
trackies, and
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Going out on the
yeah,
town.
literally.
Like, well, that's such a good idea. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out that and voting for all of those.
Hope it happens.
Last one thing I have for you, okay, is
Yeah.
my desert island discs. Right?
Ooh,
So you
I'm
are
gonna
about
hate
to
this
be
question.
yeah. You are about to be taken off to an island to quarantine by yourself, okay? And you can bring 5 albums with you. Any 5 albums, any 5 artists, any genre, any year. Don't worry about it because as I said, well, the minute you hang up this call, you're going to think of like 27 other
Literally.
albums that you'd want to bring
Yeah,
with you. So just go with your gut right now. Just go with
yeah,
listen to your heart in this one.
yeah. No, that's what I did. Someone tagged me in that like Bill Clinton thing, so I had
Oh,
4 uh that I did, and immediately I thought of so many more. What did I have? I had definitely The Weekend. What's that album called? My Dear Melancholy.
yeah.
And then I had uh I think I had John Mayer, The Search for Everything, and I think I put Life of Pablo, but I might switch that out for something else. Um, I'll go with the Life of Pablo though for now. Um, I've been really listening to a lot to that Blood Orange album, Negro Swan as well. Is that 4 or 5?
Yeah. 4 there.
Uh, and then what else did I have? Probably the 1975, probably the second album.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Was it I
the
Love to
last
Watch You
one.
Sleep? Is it,
Yeah, I wasn't going to try and say the name of it.
was it I
Um,
love you I love to watch you sleep because you're so beautiful and so unaware of it.
yeah, yeah, it's like the most convoluted title.
Yeah.
Um,
Good album
I've been
though. Good
listening.
album.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Nirvana again recently, so I'll probably put Nevermind on there as well. Or
Nice.
no,
You're
the
a
Unplugged in
rocker
New
as
York.
well. You're a rocker
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well as a hip hop head.
yeah. Just the odd thing.
Well, there you go. There's something for you to find during quarantine. It's your job to find a rap rocker.
Yeah, I actually will. I'm gonna like try and search
Hunt
this out
them
because
down.
yeah,
Hunt
if
them
anyone
down.
knows, let me know.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Making Music podcast. Thank you so much, Shane, for coming on. I have been a follower of Sold Out for so long, and I've listened to your podcast for so long. And your podcast is one of the reasons that I started my podcast.
Oh, I
So,
appreciate it.
thank you so much for all the work you've done. Thank you for all the artists that you've promoted and celebrated. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
If you guys want to hear more from Shane, we're going to have another interview on Quarantine FM on Garden Gigs, 2:30 to 5 on Tuesday. So Tuesday the 5th, won't it be? I think it would be, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Tuesday the 5th, and Shane is going to be doing a sold out takeover and be throwing on loads of songs, loads of Irish artists that he is loving at the moment. So make sure you tune into that. I've been Heather. This has been the Making It Music podcast. Make sure you check out our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter. Shane Sold Out's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. As we said, in quarantine times, the only way we can connect is through the internet. It's great for now. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll have hugs eventually in the end. Thank you guys
Yeah.
so much for tuning in. You've been excellent. Love you guys loads and have a fantastic week.